Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk now about, well, how much Israel and Gaza might feature in the conversation between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer when they meet at Chequers tomorrow. Sean Bell is a military and defence analyst. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, there's no doubt at all there's pressure politically on the Prime Minister to sort of raise the issue of Israel with Israel's biggest and almost last remaining proper ally in the world in terms of Donald Trump and the US after this Israeli IDF forces massive Gaza offensive that has begun this week, but also after a UN report claiming that, yes, there is genocide in Israel. What do you think is going to happen behind closed doors?
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. There are so many things that Sir Keir Starmer and President Trump could end up talking about, not only across in Ukraine, but as you say, across in the Middle East there. I think there's increasingly, people are uncomfortable, particularly, I mean, military action is purely a means to an end. You've got to have a political end state. What Prime Minister Netanyahu's claimed is the attack into Gaza City is all about destroying Hamas. But most military folk, myself included, you are not going to defeat Hamas by going into Gaza City. It's worth remembering you might level Gaza City, but remember the Gaza Metro, those hundreds of miles of corridors underneath Gaza? Apparently at least 75% of those are still up and running. Yeah. They're all controlled by Hamas. Therefore, Hamas are going to dart into those. The only people who are going to suffer if you level the city are the civilians, the Palestinians. And even, I think it was 600 of the senior IDF military and politicians who said there's no military solution now to dealing with Hamas. And even when Netanyahu talks about the hostages, and there are still allegedly, I think, 48 plus one that are injured from before, 20 potentially alive. But historically, the only way they've come out alive is through negotiation. They've not.
Well, you say that, but they only come out alive because of negotiation, because Hamas stays at the table, because Hamas wants a ceasefire, because they want some breathing space. They didn't just go out of the goodness of their hearts, these people that we've been raping and torturing and starving. Oh, yes, now we'll let them out. They didn't do it because they were nice people. They did it because they were forced to.
No, you're absolutely right. But it is interesting that, to actually go into Qatar, which is effectively what Israel did, and kill the negotiators, it makes a pretty clear statement that you're not really interested in negotiating anymore. And I think what's happening, I think the total figures now of Palestinians killed is around about 65,000
Well, the claimed figure by Hamas, but we know at least 23,000 of those are Hamas fighters.
Julia, I wouldn't quibble the figures. There's lots of figures either side, but if you only have to look at the pictures of devastation, and every time those buildings are coming down, there's a lot of people being caught up in this. And I think the growing international unease with the way this is going, and that's why this United Nations report, which is quite controversial, but actually is calling out. And I think the irony here is to remember that the Genocide Convention in 1948 was brought about specifically because of the treatment of the Jews in the Second World War.
Well, and that's where we need to use the word genocide very carefully. I mean, there's simply no evidence that there is a genocide in Gaza. If Israel wanted to commit a genocide in Gaza, Israel, we know, has the military might and the ability to do so, and they've not done so. They give warnings before they take out buildings. More bombs. This is the most extraordinary stat. People say, oh, it's a genocide. More bombs have been dropped by Israel on Gaza than people who Hamas claims have died. How on earth could that be a genocide when they warn people, we're going to go into Gaza City, we'll give you another 2 days to evacuate? How is that a genocide?
No, Julia, I'm a military guy, so I try and keep well away from the politics of all this.
Very wise.
I simply advise that as a military guy, if I was the guy being told by Netanyahu to go into Gaza City to destroy Hamas, I'd be looking at him going, well, that's just not possible to do.
So what is the alternative? Because we went into Iraq and Syria to try to destroy ISIS. The world forces went into Afghanistan to try to destroy Al-Qaeda. And there was a civilian population of Afghanistan that had nothing to do with that. Why are the rules different? This is the thing I find interesting. Why, and including military people saying the rules seem to be different for Israel. If you say, I mean, I understand you're not going to defeat the idea of Hamas, there'll always be another generation cropping up, but that doesn't stop the West enacting against terrorist threats to us.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think that's where, when you talk about a counterinsurgency, the way I spent 2 years of my life in Afghanistan, 3 tours out there, and let's not get drawn into the rights and wrongs of that. But the military action out there was deliberately designed to win the hearts and minds of the local people, to focus them on the enemy. What the Israelis, if you were doing a similar sort of action you would try and win the hearts and minds of the Palestinians and focus them against Hamas. That's not the way this is being done. And therefore, as you said, Hamas is more an ideology now. And if your objective is to destroy Hamas, that's not going to be able to be achieved militarily.
But isn't the key thing is that the IDF and the Israelis, government directed them to avoid Gaza City. They emptied it. They tried to go house to house to get Hamas fighters. They've managed to annihilate the leadership. They're on to like their third or fourth rung of leaders. But actually, the idea is to go into Gaza City, to be able to find the entrances to the tunnel network, and to either extract the hostages if they can, if we were there, then to destroy that tunnel network. At the end of the day, what is the alternative? I mean, people might say it's unsatisfactory, and it's absolutely awful that any innocent civilian in any war should die, let alone children. But it happens in every war, and we don't hold our own governments to account to the same way for every single death. But at the end of the day, what is the alternative? Just saying, oh well, never again. No, never mind. You just carry on as you were, and we'll just wait for the next October the 7th. That's what I don't understand people saying. What is the alternative for the Israeli government, Israeli military? As a military man yourself, what could they be doing instead?
One of the things we do in military is we spend a lot of time studying history and looking at some of the sort of wars of the past. And it's difficult to say, well, this is what happened in this, therefore it'll work in here. But what is very clear is that when you do a military operation, it's got to be to achieve a political end state. Yeah. And I think if we were to ask most of the European countries, they'd have thought that a two-state solution, a solution in which Palestinians have a state and the Israelis have a state, is the right answer. Yeah. It's pretty clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't subscribe to that view.
Well, neither do the Palestinians.
No.
The Palestinians have rejected a two-state solution 4 times.
No, yeah,
I'm just saying, like, the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution that doesn't involve Israel existing.
But if you allow me just to wander through the argument, if the international community believes that the right answer is a two-state solution, even though neither side think that's the enduring answer at the moment, but it's pretty clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't believe that. And if you look at what's happening at the moment, particularly in the West Bank, a whole lot of illegal activity that even Israel admits is illegal, it looks as if Prime Minister Netanyahu's got a broader agenda for the region. And I think that's what's making the international community just a little bit less comfortable at the moment. I just
find it extraordinary because we're looking at this genocide report from the UN, which is a totally captured organisation, but only mentions the word tunnel, which is a key part of Hamas's ability to fight and the reason why it's been hard to kill as many of them as the IDF would want. Although 23,000 is a good hit rate, they're questioning the existence of a tunnel where Sinwar's body was discovered under the European hospital. They don't mention the 7th of October attack, other than they literally state Israel launched an attack on Gaza on October the 7th. They literally don't mention the Hamas attack that provoked that. They no mention in this report that Hamas took hostages, and they still have hostages, but they accuse Israel of taking Palestinian people hostage. It is genuinely, properly a laughable report, but it's one that's being taken seriously by our politicians and by the world's media, when this is clearly a massively partisan view. And so many people get their view of what's going on in Gaza from that partisan sort of viewpoint. So appreciate you joining us, particularly with the military aspect of this. Military and defence analyst Sean Bell.